Okay, so I realized that I made a mistake before, and that was that I did not save my progress on here. So when I tried to serve it, it gave me an error. It said that index.php was not there. So make sure you do Control S. Um, it's best if you go under File right here and make sure that Auto Save is turned on. And then when you go and reload the server, you'll see your About Us in its very minimal glory at the moment. So continuing on, we're going to keep adding some of these little links and everything else here. The only reason I'm going back to the index.html and I'm going to eventually go back and paste everything at the end is because I'm a little bit lazy and I don't want to have to keep making closing tags, although I'll probably be doing that in the future with subsequent videos. I'll just be doing everything within the PHP file because it's a little bit annoying to go back and forth. But we're going to start defining our row. Oops, sorry, this is a div element, and the class is going to be row. And notice the closing tag just fills in itself. Also, when I hit the class, there was that little tab completion. If you don't have HTML extensions, you can go and grab them. You can just get HTML over here. Remember, this is the extensions button. This is all the changes that have been made in your files. So these are all the files and folders and things that have been added or changed. Most of these are not yet being tracked, which is why they have a U next to them. D means deleted. In reality, this was just moved into a different folder. So not a big deal at all. Yeah, that's pretty much it for that for right now. The other thing that I wanted to also point out that I didn't in the previous two videos is I made this little credential file right here so that you guys can easily keep track of what's what. Because I set this VM up for me. If you if you're using the VM that I made, obviously you would use the same things. If you are using the one that you made, I recommend that you just have a little file that just keeps track of some of the stuff. Don't ever include it in your GitHub repo, but it's just a nice little handy thing that we're going to have, especially once we get towards the AWS stuff and you have to set up what's called IAM, which is access control management. It's a really, really, really good feature that Amazon has. It allows you to grant access to certain applications or to users to do X, Y, or Z. It's super important for security, and we'll address that more as we get to it. Div. I'm going to create another div. This is where we're going to create our columns. I'm going to create one column in its entirety, and I'm just going to copy and paste it 4 times. So yeah. So this first one is going to be a column class. Oops, column class. And then we're going to have a card class, a div card class. So all of these things are also defined in Bootstrap, which is a framework for HTML and CSS, and it has JavaScript scripts and a bunch of other neat little features that we'll be exploring in more detail next class. And that'll get us going, really kind of catalyze our development because they take a lot of the hard work and headaches out of defining all this stuff yourself. They've already created a bunch of these classes and they have attributes that have already been applied, and then you can just tweak them as you need to. But for right now, it's important that you learn some of these very basic elements and attributes that we'll be using throughout the semester. So this one is an image tag. So for an image tag, this is very similar to the link tag above here. You're going to have just a single line. It's not going to have a closing tag like the div below it. we're going to have everything contained within our image here. And that is the source right here is the path. It's the path to that image. Now, we don't have any images in there at the moment. So I'm just going to define this one called one.jpg, assuming that whatever file I end up grabbing is a JPEG. Now, part of your assignment will be to go out and grab at least 4 pictures, and that will give you those images that you're going to use, and we're going to put those in this here image folder. And that way, when we push that, it won't be empty. Yeah. Okay. We're not going to be making any modifications to this one just yet. We're going to make a modification to the image tag as a whole in about.css when we're all finished. And I just want to get the bare bones. I want to get the skeleton of this guy up and going. And the class is going to be container for this div right here. And this is going to have kind of like our info about these people. So our first label right here is just going to be for our CEO, or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't have to be CEO. It doesn't have to be the ones that the titles that I'm using, or the names that I'm using. I'm just putting some stuff in here so that you can see what's going on. And what I'm doing is I'm just putting in, and then so that you guys can see what's going on here. And a random, completely made up email address, because I am not cool enough to have Harrison Ford's personal contact information. I'm just going to give a little bit of space between the row divs right here. And that's going to be so I can copy and paste this guy. So it's going to be, I put a space between the last div that's just before main, which was on line 19. And I'm just going to copy and paste, hit enter to give me another space. And that'll give me my 4 columns. Now, these images don't currently exist because I don't have anything. So I'm going to grab some neat little pictures. My site is going to be an e-commerce site for memes. So I'm going to grab some meme templates. Get some old school stuff going on in here. I'm going to save this image as, I'm going to put it on my desktop in my images folder. And this is just going to be one. It doesn't actually have to be whatever you said it was before, because it doesn't actually matter. This is just an example. I could have Harrison Ford, but I decided at the last minute to switch it up. This is going to be 2.jpg. That's neat. That happened to be a JPEG. You may have to change the file extension on some of these guys. I don't know what I just saw. I'm not going to look at that Family Guy one again. Oops. Okay. The last 2 were JPEGs. The other one was probably like JPG or something like that. That'll do it. So you'll notice as well that these images are different sizes. Yeah, so these are PNGs. That's fine. Just get 4 images. Do I have 4 images? I think I've got 4 images. Yeah. So just swap out the file extensions as the case may be. This is 2. This is 3. And then 4 is a PNG. 1, 2, 3, PNG, JPEG, JPEG, PNG. All right, great. So it should have autosave, but just in case, I'm going to do Control S to save it. And as you can see, we have all of our stuff going on right here. Now, none of this is formatted, so it looks awful at the moment, but you can see that things have materialized in the browser. What we're going to do is we're going to crop everything so that it's the pictures are no larger than, let's call it 100 by 100. For this one may be a problem because it's vertically taller than it is wider. So that may be an issue. We'll come to that as we come to it. So, all right, we've got our index stuff going on right here. I'm going to copy and paste all of this stuff from index.html. And I'm going to just delete everything that's in index.php. And I'm going to paste what I had in there. Great. I'm going to save this. Make sure that this loads. It's good to go. Great. I could have just refreshed the other page instead of reloading it, but whatever. That's fine. Sometimes you need to reload the server because the CSS is cached or whatever. So just be aware that if it's still showing you the same things before and you know that you've saved, that's the one trick right there, then just go through and change that stuff. So for our index.php, we're going to apply stuff to main. So like I was saying before, this without a dot means that it's the element itself. It's whatever this like blue element, this darker blue kind of element is right here, this HTML element. These are pretty official. They're very well defined. If you go to HTML element and you Google it, you can find on like W3 Schools, you can find all kinds of references for different elements that you can find. Some of these, let's see, here we go. Here's Mozilla one. What I'll do is I'll put links to these in the lab 2 folder that I'll make for this session, and you guys can take a look at that as well. This is all stuff for the header. Don't worry about that. Typically you would have what's called the body tag. We're using main. I don't believe there's any difference between them as far as we're concerned here. I'm going to change the font family. You'll notice that there's a little bit of completion here because I have HTML and CSS extensions. So this is HTML and CSS support, HTML snippets, IntelliSense for class names, stuff like that. Those are all very helpful. You can also find ones that are unique to CSS. I'll just install this in case I want to make things pretty. Anywho, here's the font family. So font family is the attribute. Normally I think it's like Arial or Times New Roman. I'm going to change this one to Consolas, which is the font that looks kind of like code. There are actual like files that you can change. Why are you being like this? Okay, it looks like it's just going to be annoying. I'm going to probably take off that. Yeah, this is not going to be okay. This is actually super annoying. I'm going to disable this. Oh, wait, it's this one. My bad. Oops. Remember, everything you do can be undone. Here we go. Text, oops, it's text align, my bad. And that's going to be center. Some of these need single quotes around them. Some of them don't. I don't have a good rule for which ones do and which ones don't. You just have to kind of look at the references as you come across them, as you want to do certain things. By default, the color of the text is going to be black. So for example, for our p tags, I'm putting curly braces. So the curly braces are a requirement, non-negotiable. So you can there's certain words that are associated with these ones. Like I can just type in red and it'll give me red, right? It should be on autosave, but just in case. So now when I reload this, you'll see that the text is red. This text doesn't look like it's changed. Let me do something really weird just to see. Let me look up some different font families here. Just so you know, whenever you are asking me a question about particular font families or things like that, I'm really just Googling them. So let's see. You could put Japanese on there if you're interested in doing a anime page. That's neat. Let's do fantasy. Let's see. Or cursive. Just to see, just to make sure that changes are being applied. Cursive. Nope. Okay. That's fine. So I'm going to swap out main for body just for this lab, and we'll change it to main at, in the next lab. Let's try this. And we need to change that in about as well to be body and our about.css. Oops. Okay, perhaps I just have the wrong thing in there for font family values. All right, whatever, not important. We won't make changes to the font family on that one. I'm just gonna do Times New Roman. Okay, whatever, that's fine. All right, moving on. I'm going to make changes to the about section as well. I'm going to put a background on there. So after the p tag, so this is where we get into classes. We have an about class, and we're going to apply background color, or a background to it. You can also put an image in as the background, and I'm just going to select royal blue for right now, just to kind of demo it. But you can swap that out with something that you want as well. So now you can kind of see where these sections are being kind of segmented. So that looks absolutely awful. I'm going to make this black. I'm going to make it green. It's still going to look awful, but I'm going to do a nice soft purple like that. You can get red, green, blue values. There's another one as well. It's RGBA, and that the A is alpha. A means opacity. It's how transparent something is. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put padding in here, and I'll explain what that is in just a minute. So let me just actually show you. All right. So if you right click over a web page, particularly if you have Chrome or Firefox, I don't remember if Safari has this. You can inspect elements. Okay. So you'll see that the margin is the space from one element to another. So there is a margin of 0 for this one. So it's right on top of the photo. It's right on top of this block right here. Okay. The padding is how much space there is between elements within a particular division or like div, basically like an enclosing space. So I put 8 pixels all around, which doesn't sound like much, but when you've got a whole bunch of items in there, for example, it is. You can change up things like the border radius as well. You can make it curved. You can basically increase the distance between things. So anyway, I'm going to continue modifying some of the CSS. I'm going to change the image stuff as well. So you'll notice that I'm kind of just like alternating between elements and then classes here. It doesn't actually matter what order you do this stuff in necessarily, because these properties will be applied at their most specific level. And what that means is, for example, I have a green text color applied to all paragraphs, right? I'm going to just copy this and delete it for right now so I can show you. So I have a green color applied to the text of all paragraphs. But when I go in here, in this Harrison Ford one, right? Or, yeah. If I define the style in here to be red, color, the color is red, right? Just like here, we're just defining it within the HTML itself. All right. I did not save it, I think. Oh, wait. Oh, oh, I didn't change these up later. Okay, so it's actually the second column. My bad. Right there. You'll notice that this one is now red, whereas the other ones are green, because this is applied to all of them. I should really change these up so I can see that. But anyway, you get the picture. So anyway, I could, for example, specify that this is going to be card 1 right here. And I could apply very specific stuff. For example, I could change up the text color to be Indian red, whatever that is. Sounds like it's just orange. And then let's see. Okay. Yeah, it's like an orangish red. Anyway. So that is applied to this particular one right here. None of the rest of the stuff, all the rest of the stuff is applied, but because I specified this at a more specific level at this particular card level rather than every single other card. Oops. Sorry. Let me do this one is going to be class. Sorry, equals C1. My bad. This is where I actually meant to do it because I just defined a separate class before. I'm sorry if that's confusing. All right. All right, now this is like what I was saying before. So although it doesn't look materially different, this is being applied to this particular class. The green text is being applied to every other P. I applied the red attribute to this particular paragraph style, this particular line right here. And I applied this class right here to this one right here. So it allows me to specify it in particular. I'm singling this one out and saying I'm going to apply these attributes to this particular P tag. Anyway, so that's more or less how you do it. I'm going to just do a few more things to the image. So for defining the sizes, you have height and width. So I'm going to define 100 px, for example. So you can define the height and the width in terms of percentages. You can define it in terms of pixels. And those are pretty much the two units that we're going to use in this class because they're the most useful. So when you look at font, when you're changing the font size from like 12 to 16 or whatever, what you're doing is you're just increasing the pixels. You're just increasing the pixel size by 1 or 2 or however many. It's this, so we're going to do a similar kind of thing with our photos right here. So anyway, it doesn't look fantastic for all of this. I'm actually going to make this like 200 by 200. I should really just keep refreshing. That looks a little bit better. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start defining our columns, and I'm going to make our cards so it actually starts to look more professional. So our column is going to have some of these attributes. So float corresponds to position. All the stuff that I'm going to be doing with these columns will come down to their sizing, and their position. So floating means it's almost like justifying everything left. When you do that on your Word documents, you're basically making it so that by default the stuff will kind of shift to the left, almost like it's like on a teeter totter, and it's you have like a heavier person on the left, and things are kind of like moving that way. Like they have a preference for the left. All right. I'm going to set the margin on the right, because of that, to be 16 pixels. So I'm separating each of the columns by 16 pixels. And I'm going to put a width of 22%, or 20. How many do I have? I think I've got 4 or 5, so I'll make it 25%. Something like that. All right. A little bit less, perhaps. It probably also has to do with the size of these images. I'll make this one 120 by 120. All right, now they're all in a neat little row. I'm going to define the area around them, and I'm also going to make another modification. So I want the margin everywhere else to be only 10 pixels. Okay. So that gives me a little bit of margin on the top. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to define these cards. So this card class. And that's going to give us the shading for the box shadow. So it gives it like this 3-dimensional look, which is kind of neat. I will tell you what all of this stuff means as soon as I'm done typing it. I believe it goes top, bottom, left, right. In terms of like how you want, like how much of the shadow you want. And for a good kind of soft shadow, I'm going to go with this number right here. It's basically B3 3 times, and then F5. So this is a hex value. It technically corresponds to a combination of 3 numbers, but and I'm going to put some padding right here, and I'll explain what all of these numbers mean in just a second as well. Okay. So when you do that, get these nice, neat little things right here. Oh, this does not have that applied to it. So you can kind of see a difference between the C1, the card 1 thing that I applied, and then all the rest of these nice, neat little ones. So let me just go and I'm gonna delete this guy because that was just used for demonstration purposes, and this is going to have the card type applied to that class. And now that'll have everything applied to it. All right. I will show you guys how to center everything next week, and you guys can keep experimenting with this and put different information in here as you so need, because not everyone's going to be the CEO. But in general, this is kind of like our starting point, and we're gonna get much more complex. You're gonna have a nav bar next week, and we will keep building on this site. And by the end of the semester, it'll actually look pretty good, and you'll have enough time to where you can add all kinds of nice pictures and aesthetics to it.